It's the fifth Sunday of Lent. We are in our final approach to our holiest and most sacred week. Next week is Holy Week. Lucky for you, this is the fifth Sunday of Lent because it's also the last of my sermon series on the deadly sins. So after today, you can relax. I've been speaking about the 7 deadly sins and the penance, which is the remedy or the cure, the therapy, so to speak, for us to become whole and holy. Just as a quick refresher, again, Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, before they committed their sin, Adam and Eve could love perfectly, could honor and respect perfectly, obey perfectly. But after their sin, their intellect, their will, their passions were wounded. Yes, they could still love and honor and obey, but now in an imperfect, wounded way. And you and I all, as members of the human race, have inherited that wounded nature. Our intellects, wills, and passions are wounded. That is why we can love and we can honor and respect and obey, but now we do it in an imperfect way. That is how we who love our families so dearly can at the same time hurt them so bad. Can't we? Because we don't love perfectly. And none of us want to hurt anybody else, hopefully, but we continue to do that kind of stuff, huh? Oh, it's just like, what's wrong? Because we're wounded. We have a wounded nature, and that woundedness leaks out into the world in 7 major categories, which are called the 7 deadly sins. There's 7 fundamental ways in which our woundedness leaks out into the world. Today, the last sin that I'm going to speak about is the deadly sin of lust. And the healing remedy, because that's what I really want to focus on, is the penance. And penance is not punitive, it's not punishment. Penance is restorative, it's healing. And the penance, the healing for lust. Now, many people in our culture think that lust is the deadliest of the deadly sins, but the church actually says that lust is the least deadly of the deadly sins. Did you know that? Lust is the least deadly of the deadly sins because it's most linked with our instincts and our passions. But whether you get hit by a grenade or a bullet, you're still going to die. So it's still deadly, okay? It's still a deadly sin. It's just the least because it's most linked with our natural instincts. That's what the church is saying. Lust, really simply, I think we all understand what lust is. There was one guy who was talking and someone said to him, I think you have a problem with lust. He says, I don't have a problem with lust. I can do it whenever I want. That was a joke. And I think that's most of our experiences. It's just, it's right there. It's very easy. It's an easy thing for us to fall into, perhaps. Now, again, some of us struggle with one of these deadly sins more than another. Not everybody struggles with anger in the same way or greed the same way. Not everybody's going to struggle with lust in the same way. But lust is an immoderate use of our sexuality and our sexual powers. That's what it is. It's just real simple. And I don't need to go into details about how you and I live in a culture now that is the most sexualized and I think sexually dysfunctional culture in the history of the planet. And what we have access to now is unparalleled in our history. It's particularly for young people with social media and internet. It's kind of scary what is coming into homes nowadays. When my grandparents were young, if Grandpa wanted to interact with another lady, Grandma and Grandpa would be swinging on the front porch. Read. And if they wanted to hang out with the lady, she had to come over and sit in the parlor or on the porch with Grandma and Grandpa. And that was your access. Not anymore, huh? Everything's different nowadays. And so this instinct for lust has really exploded in many ways. Well, I don't want to go into all the details about lust, but more focus on what's the remedy. What's the remedy and the healing for lust? The opposite virtue of lust is going to be chastity. And chastity is right use of our sexuality. And I want to give you 2 forms of penance that may sound kind of odd, but 2 remedies to grow in chastity. And one is patience and willpower. That's what I want to talk about. Patience and willpower. If you struggle with lust, then I invite you to work on patience. You might be thinking, what in the world does patience have to do with lust? Lots. Let me explain. What is patience? Patience is a sign of maturity. And maturity is being able to put off pleasure. That's what maturity is. Being able to put off pleasure. And patience is waiting with maturity. Someone who is patient is able to wait with kindness and maturity. And maturity in patience is being able to wait and put off pleasure. See, someone who might be a little child and not growing up in maturity because they're just a child wants the ice cream before dinner. And a mature person says, no, you wait and you have dinner first, then you have the ice cream. That's a mature decision, isn't it? So maturity is just being able to hold off pleasure. Patience is that virtue that helps us really to mature in that ability to hold off a pleasure. And not all pleasures are evil and bad, but they're just not appropriate at the right times. It's not appropriate to have your ice cream before dinner. It's not. And sometimes a moment of lust hits us. And we need to be able to be mature and hold off that pleasure. Patiently waiting. Because it might not be the right time or right place. Follow me? So, patience. Here's what, we have one more week of Lent. If lust is something that you struggle with, then I want you to dive headfirst into patience this week as your remedy, as the healing therapy for you. Patience. Put yourself in positions to grow in patience. Next time you go to the grocery store or Walmart, purposely stand in the aisle with all the carts. At the checkout line. Choose the biggest line. I'm serious. We have to grow in patience. We need to do things that are going to stretch us where we can overcome and have self-control. So if you're struggling with patience, there's a good chance you might be struggling with lust. So look for ways to exhibit and practice patience. And you can grow in patience. Remember, patience is a virtue. Virtues are habits or permanent dispositions to do good. They're habits. And so you have to form good habits. And so I just want to give patience to you. It'll help you become more mature. And more mature people, they can wait and hold off pleasure till later. That's the answer to lust. The second aspect of this is willpower. Willpower is key to our lives as human beings. We have an intellect, we have a will, and we have our passions. Our passions are our natural desires. Thirst, hunger, sex, sleep. Those are our natural passions. We can't help those things. But they can take control of us, or we can be in control of them. Now, our intellect is knowing what is right or wrong, or what we should do. And our willpower is the choice part of ourselves. So I can know something, but I still have to choose it, don't I? I could know that I need to do the homework, but I still have to choose to do it. I have to know that it's probably not good to watch the entire season of something on Netflix tonight, but I have to choose not to do that. I can know that I should eat the whole plate of cookies, but my willpower says only one. See where willpower comes into play? Now, our willpower is like a muscle. It can be trained. There was a fantastic study done in Stanford several years ago about willpower and how willpower is like a muscle that can wear out. Did you know that? They did a study. They brought all these people in. And they had half the group, one at a time, come in, and they would come into a room, and there was a plate of fresh-baked cookies. Gross. Oh, fresh-baked cookies are the best. So they had a plate of fresh-baked cookies and a plate of raw chopped vegetables. And for the first group, they came in and said, please, do not eat the cookies, eat the vegetables. That was their requirement. Do not eat the cookies, eat the vegetables. And there they are sitting right there. And they had to be in the room for 15 minutes. Imagine college students doing this. But they did it. And then the next group, they said, please, whatever you do, don't eat the vegetables. Eat the cookies. Easy, huh? And so they ate all the cookies, no problem. But that actually wasn't the test. After they sat before their cookies or vegetables, they took them into a room and they said, just wait here while everyone finishes, and I want you to do this little puzzle. You know the little maze puzzles where you put your pencil in and you try to go through the maze and get to the other side of the maze? You know those? They gave them one of those, but it was a maze that was impossible to complete. It was a setup. It was an impossible maze. There was no answer to it. And they wanted to find out how long would they spend on this maze before they gave up. Here's what they found. The people who had to resist the cookies, use their willpower to resist the cookies, did far worse on the exam. The people who got to eat the cookies spent an incredible amount more time working on the puzzle. Here was their conclusion. The first group used up their willpower. And when they got to the exam, their willpower had been used up, and so they just gave in. Their conclusion is this: you can wear out your willpower. It's like a muscle. You can only do so many push-ups before you just get exhausted. Our willpowers are finite. They can wear out. That is why, if you've had a hard day, a big project at work, lots of stress, you've had to keep yourself in control, at the end of that night, you will have a worn-out willpower muscle. Your will muscle is worn down, which is chances are, if you are presented with a strong temptation at the end of a hard day, your willpower is itty-bitty weak. Making sense? That's why all the crazy stuff happens on Friday night on college campuses. Because they've killed themselves all week studying and working hard, the willpower is done. I'm not making an excuse, I'm just pointing to a reality. But it still happens to us. So what do? We can strengthen our willpower. Our willpower is like a muscle. It can be trained and made to grow stronger, to be able to handle more stress, to handle more temptation, and to last longer in the battle. So what we need to do as Christians especially is to strengthen our will muscle. We need to work it out. How do we do that? Practice patience. I already told you. Put yourselves in positions with things that aren't of great importance and consequence, and train yourself to be good. So put yourself in the checkout line with lots of carts and just practice that willpower, because there's not a huge consequence there. Put yourself in positions where if you fail in this moment, it's not going to be drastically bad. And that's where also fasting and abstinence, sacrificing, builds our willpower. Matthew Kelly speaks about how all of us as Catholics, we should be fasting every day from something. Every day. All year round. Not just in Lent. But it could be little things. Fasting from little things. For example, you're getting your oil change. You're at Jiffy Lube. You're sitting in the waiting room. Today you say, no cell phone surfing. I can read a book. I can read a magazine. Today, no cell phone. Just a little sacrifice. Just training yourself something. At dinner, today, no salt. No salt on my food today. I'll live without more salt on my food today, but I'm just a little sacrifice. Willpower. I'm learning to put off things that I desire. Just pick a day. This day, nothing in my coffee, just black. If you don't like it, then no coffee. Today, no coffee then. Can you do that? Of course. These are all little ways that we're training ourselves to grow in our willpower, so that when we come to the more difficult moment, our will muscle is strong enough to handle what's coming towards us. Because all of us are going to have moments of stress. We're all going to have bad days where the world's upside down and going wrong against you, and it's not fair, and now you're in a position where a temptation comes to you, and what happens? You blow up at the kids. We eat way too much. We go on a shopping binge. We look at inappropriate things on the internet, you name it. And afterwards we're like, oh, dang it, I did it again. Will muscle. So again, just to conclude, If you struggle in this area, this week, enter into patience. Grow in patience. It has huge side benefits, patience does. The Lord is patient, slow to anger, rich in kindness. Patience. Patience breeds maturity, and then exercise your will muscle. If you do that, you're going to be okay.